You know it's going to be a good night when somebody immediately reminds you of Burt Reynolds, the greatest cinematic actor of all time. We have an hour to go. We've got 3 projects to get to, and they tell us it can't be done. I know we can. Oh my gosh.
There it is. And there it is.
Rylan is here with the man, the myth, the legend. I can tell you as a South Floridian who went to Florida State, Burt is the be-all and end-all in my life. And 45 minutes north of me used to be the Burt Reynolds Museum. So one rainy, cloudy day, my wife and I drove up to Jupiter. We went to the Burt Reynolds Museum. It's unfortunately no longer in existence, but I can tell you it was worth the drive. There was nothing really that interesting except that I was in the Burt Reynolds Museum and it was awesome. And so this one is dedicated. This episode is dedicated to the greatest of all time. Women wanted to date him. Men wanted to have a beer. Rylan, you obviously have a Burt Reynolds. You are an aficionado.
When Burt Reynolds died, Julian's big auction house in Hollywood had an auction of his estate. And I tried like hell to get a number of things and got outbid. But what I ended up with is this woodcut that was apparently in his office for years. So this is actually Burt Reynolds' woodcut. And I actually met the man, the myth, the legend. Just background is my day job. I am a screenwriter in Hollywood. Oh, nice. And so when I was a young pup, I was repped at CAA. Burt was at CAA. And there was a screening at CAA. CAA is like big agency in town. It's kind of like the movie Death Star. And I get called in to watch this movie just because I'm rep there. And it was a shitty movie. I mean, I'm not going to name the movie because I don't want to shame anyone, but it was, it was Burt was late in life for Burt. Burt was taking paychecks at that point.
Right.
And the movie was terrible. And being at one of those screenings afterwards it's really rough when the movie is terrible because like, you're at the agency where everyone's repped, right? And then you guys come out afterwards and everybody's sitting around, having beers and you're trying not to talk about how shitty the movie was.
Right.
And so I go up to the bar and I order a beer and I'm waiting a little too long for it. And somebody comes up, to the bar, standing next to me. And I look over and it's fucking Burt Reynolds. And I'm like a scared 24-year-old kid. And I'm standing 4 feet away from my hero.
Right.
And I'm sort of looking over and I'm smiling like a goon. And at some point, he looks over at me and he's like, hey kid, can you believe that I acted in this stripe? In that Burt Reynolds sort of way. And like, I don't have any idea what to say. And I'm like, and all I can think of to say is, you know what? I can't, Burt. I can't. And he looks at me like I just, like I just punched him or something like that. All I was doing was agreeing with him. And he looks at me long and hard and he says, "Fuck you, kid." And then he walks away. and that's my Burt Reynolds story.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Yeah. That is wonderful. Oh man. You know what? We usually go an hour. We're gonna go 2 or 3 hours. We're gonna do the first hour and a half on Burt Reynolds tonight. We're not gonna talk about it. I apologize. Forget
the books.
No, you know what? Why don't we do the show as is, and when we finish up, maybe come back around to Burt. Let's because you guys have given us your time and we appreciate it. Will, you're back. You had a week's vacation. You feeling revved up?
It wasn't a week's vacation. It was a week of training, and I got back about 4 hours ago.
Nice.
A little jet lagged at this point.
All right, guys. We're not going to hear from Will again tonight. Really appreciate you stopping by.
The Ambien is kicking in as we speak.
Yeah.
He is all trained up. So, we usually do a 30-second pitch on each project. CJ, why don't you talk to us about the anthology? How would you get somebody's attention about the anthology? And if you were at a comic convention and they were going past the Band of Bards booth?
Yeah, good question. So sci-fi, romance, anthology, sort of a rarity mashup that we find in comics, right? It was an open submission, so we went through a pretty diligent process to compile 14 creators, 110 pages of content, and multiple covers too. For an anthology is a little bit rare, including a cosplay cover. So we think it's rarity, and it has some really good names in indie comics that people would definitely gravitate towards, and it looks amazing. There's some really stunning art included in the anthology. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, think about where erotica is very big on Kickstarter. Where can you find romance though? Like, come on, it's got to be amongst the stars.
Yeah, it should be first, right? I mean, we're all. I mean, we're not gonna lie. We're trying to get to the erotica, but we want at least.
You gotta earn it, you know.
Yeah,
you gotta get there.
Exactly.
You start with the romance.
First base. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. This is first base, and then all the other stuff is
All right.
Amongst the stars. Then on the second date, we get to cheeky. All right.
That's just pillow talk, baby. That's just pillow talk.
I was going to say we're definitely on our way to Steamy somewhere as we get there. But instead of going forward into Steamy, let's go way back to not safe for work.
For very safe for work.
Well, let's talk about a very safe for work comic project.
Absolutely.
So if someone was coming past your booth at a show, how would you get their attention on Mechaton?
Well, first I'd say, hey! And that usually works. But no, I'd say Mechaton is a sci-fi action comedy, rule of cool adjectives, comic about a alien glove that crash lands on Earth. A brother and sister find it and discover that anything that they punch while wearing it turns into a battle mech. Where there are giant mechs, there are kaiju. So kaiju shenanigans ensue. It's a book with a lot of heart. It's a book with a lot of action. It has everything you could possibly want.
Awesome. All right, and Rylan, just one more Burt Reynolds? No. So besides someone going past your booth and you just literally giving and saying, I had a beer with Burt Reynolds, how would you get their attention about the jump?
Burt Reynolds told me to fuck off once because I said something jerky to him. The jump.
I know.
Did I just cut out of my back?
Yes, you're back.
That was so well timed too. I
beautiful.
literally just said the name of the book, and then my internet decided to. I'm hardwired in too. But anyway, the jump is a.
So the good news is this is usually me, so I'm really appreciating you doing me. So. God. For some reason, this show hates the name of your book. I'm going to say it.
Everyone says The Jump, and their internet immediately dies.
Ryland's book is The Jump, and it is about... Oh, my God, he is frozen.
Oh, my God!
Man.
Okay, so...
Going so well there. Yeah. All right.
We're gonna try it again, but no one say the name. This is like The Ring, but
we all know the name of the comic. No need to say it out loud.
So this here, it is a paranoid thriller set in the world of astral projection.
So we got a paranoid thriller set in the world of astral projection, and we are going to give you 2 seconds to get back up. We're losing you now. So
I'm going to try and reconnect. I'll pop back in on you guys. I don't know what's going on here. Give me a second.
That sounds awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the deep dive on Mechaton while we try to get him set up. So Wells, I'm going to pull up the page. So this is issues 1 through 5. Where did you the glimmer of the idea of this project come from? And not just that, but how did you assemble the team on this?
So this is co-written by me and my good friend Dalton Shannon. Originally, the inception of the idea was his. He had spent a lot of late night benders watching Gurren Lagann and Code Geass and these sort of like Toonami, late night anime. And it was just messing around at 16 years old and was like, what if glove punch mech? And it's sort of like that's sort of just been the joke for a while. But as we kind of did more comic stuff and developed as writers, we went back to the idea and was like, there's something compelling in that. And so we sat down and talked it through and discovered this whole wide world that's sort of involved in this. But yeah, it's the inception of all the nerdy stuff that we love, from Dragon Ball Z and Scott Pilgrim to The Legend of Zelda and Metroid and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, we just wanted to kind of bring our love of geeky stuff to a thing, and Mechaton was sort of the shape that took. Assembling the team, it was obviously me and Dalton are the sort of dynamic duo as far as the writers, creators, but the artists were insanely difficult to find for this project. As it turns out, asking an artist to repeatedly design a brand new, essentially, set of characters every issue is not a good pitch to try and sell an artist on your idea. But we found Fernando Pinto, who's a Chilean art professor, as well as the guitarist in a punk rock band. And he was just like, hell yes, everything about this is awesome. And really went full-throated with it. He has such a dynamic and interesting art style, and we were drawn to it. It took quite a while to get there. We tried out quite a few other art styles, but this was the one we were most happy with. And then Megan Casey, as a letterer, she has done some incredible stuff on like Invader Zim, Rick and Morty, stuff like that. A lot of stuff for like Oni Press, and there's another press in there that I'm forgetting the name of. And then Nathan Kemp was just a luck find, scrolling through Twitter, is the letterer and French guy, super nice. We had a long chat with him, and we really liked his style, and he invents something new for every project that we have him on with. So we love working with Nathan. But
I love that you say super nice French guy. I think that there is every French person I have met since I've gotten into comics is a prince or an angel. They are unbelievably talented, great to work with, and incredible. And I think that there's this, we were all told this lie growing up about French people. I'm going to tell you, the French people rule, and I wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for one certain Frenchman who I hitched my wagon to, and he's been dragging me along for about 10 years. So, you know, I'm not going to say the only French term I know because we're on the kids page. But
I know a bunch of Cajun French from my wife. She's from New Orleans, so yeah. So I know what a chachette is, but
So
yeah.
this is issue 1 through 5. Is this a full arc, or
yes? So this is the end of the first arc. We successfully have funded issues 1, 2, and 3. So this one is primarily funding 4 and 5. So if you have been caught up on the series, you get 4 and 5. If you're brand new to it, you get all 5 of the first ones. And this again wraps up the first arc. We have 3 that we're planning, and then if it's popular and we want to do more after that, great. But that's the sort of that's the big story that we have in mind for it.
Oh, that's awesome. And the age range, is this like late elementary school, early middle school, or?
Honestly, I would say it's kids of all ages.
Got it.
But by which I mean from like 10 to 50 can enjoy this. We never really intended. We never set out to make like an all ages or a kids book. We set out to make a fun book and an all ages book, and in the literal sense that anyone could enjoy it. And the result of that was a lot of kids do really enjoy it. But also, like, I have teachers and librarians that buy the books for their students, and they love the hell out of it. But also, we have a huge following of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds that grew up on Transformers and Power Rangers that love this book. So I think anyone can enjoy it. It's got a maybe some slight YA vibes to it. So like, I would say, if you're narrowing down the age range between 14 and 23, somewhere in that range. But
no, sweet.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to. I don't use the term all ages as a pejorative.
Right.
My Mount Rushmore comics are Sandman, Lock and Key, and I don't have my 4th, but the 3rd is Bone.
Sure.
So like it doesn't have to, I mean,
yeah, I don't mean to like seem like I'm taking offense or anything. Just like it's weird that when people say, "Hey, this is an all ages book," that was never the intention. Like we just wanted to make a fun, sort of sci-fi light fantasy kind of book, and that happens to work for all ages. I think we just like. Because a lot of our natural tempo and what the way we write occasionally throws in some curse words, and as we were writing it, we were just like, this doesn't feel right. Let's take these out, and let's make sure that the violence isn't getting like out of hand or anything like that. And as a result, it happens to be very kid friendly.
That's so cool that you kind of found it in the thing. We had Nick Byers on for I think it was Cheeky, I think is what his was, and he had started it to be a porn comic. And then when he got through with like the first 3, at least first full issue, the only sex was in like the first 2 pages. And then he went, oh wait, this isn't porn at all. And he rewrote the first 2 pages because he realized he wasn't writing that in any way, shape, or form. But it's so cool that you find what the book is on
for sure. Absolutely. And most of the books, I think you sort of enter it thinking it's going to be one thing, and then it kind of makes its own will be known in the process. Sometimes you're right on the money, and sometimes it's way off. And I've had a lot of projects that do both. But yeah, this one we knew it had some like more adult jokes in it in the first like couple of drafts, and we just realized the more we did it, how out of place it felt. Absolutely. But yeah, super fun series.
Cool. Check it out. Sorry, just checking back.
Or CJ.
Yeah. Oh, there's CJ.
Did I lose him?
Yeah,
there you go.
It was my turn for internet issues, so
Sure. I am in Chicago. I have fiber. If my internet starts failing, it's this like the program is infected with some kind of ghost.
With the word, it's infected with the word. Don't say the word. Okay, don't say the word.
I just want you to go. It's almost every week that I'm the one that freezes. I'm just appreciating this. I really am. It's just nice to not be the one. But I just wanted to talk about that with the whole. The whole group. Do you guys have any situations where you went into a book or a script of any kind where you were like, I think I'm telling story A when you start and you realize I'm actually telling genre B. Have you had series kind of tell you what they are as you're working on them?
I think you always need to listen. To what your story is telling you, what your character is telling you. It's not as violent a change as you're talking about. But when I was writing Aberrant, which was kind of my first, my first, in the comic shops book, won a Ringo Award for Best Villain, nominated for 2 others. But I pitched the series and I had it all plotted out, right? Had a handful of characters that I was married to and steamrolling along with them. And then I'm writing issue 2 and I have 2 characters sitting in a bar. And, the protagonist is he's in the army. He's about to leave the army to go do something stupid. And the other guy's trying to keep him from leaving. And he's like, the army's going to come after you. And, the guy says, let him come. And the other guy says, trust me, you don't want to know what the army has waiting in their basement to come get you. And just came flowing out of me while I was typing, right? Had never thought about it before. And I sort of stopped right there. Just locked the brakes up. And I'm like, what does the army have waiting in the basement? It ended up being this character Rook that is just this kind of monstrous like experiment gone wrong. And Rook became kind of the 3rd protagonist of the series. I had never thought about him until I was like 2/3 of the way through writing the second book. By the end of the book, he had this really textured storyline, was everybody's favorite character. He had his own issue. Issue 8 was supposed to be something completely different, but as the series unfolded, it became the Rook issue, and that was in a lot of ways everybody's favorite issue. So I think that if you don't, you need to outline, you need to prepare. You shouldn't be starting a 10 issue series without knowing where you're going, but you need to listen to what the characters are telling you and what the story is telling you. Otherwise, otherwise you're doing that at your own peril, ignoring that.
Yeah, it sounds like Tolkien and Bilbo Baggins grabbing something and putting it in its pocket, and it ends up being the One Ring that.
Yeah. Like, what if this ring was the most important thing in the war universe?
Yeah.
I've definitely had that a couple times. I have a project that's in the scripting phase right now that I'm talking about with Band of Bards, actually, funnily enough, speaking of CJ. But like, it started out, I just knew sort of what I wanted it to be in the abstract, which is never how I write stories normally. I usually have a very concrete idea of what I'm doing. But I was just like, I want these plot beats to happen, so let's go. And I had 5 issues and it just didn't work. And then I did an entire second draft and it just didn't work. And it was midway through the 3rd draft, I was like, oh, I finally get what the story is. It's about these 2 characters and their relationship. And I had to go back from that point and do a 4th draft. And suddenly it was like, oh, this is a story now. This isn't just a bunch of things that happen that are cool. This actually has a lot of heart to it. So yeah, 100%.
That's so neat. That's so neat when you find the thread and that you didn't realize was there. That's really cool. All right, so we can catch up with all 5 issues. If we've missed it, I'm physical and digital. I'm assuming
physical and digital. Yeah, any way that you read, we have something available for. We have. We want you to be able to catch up. We also have them in the add-ons. So if you get something that doesn't have the catch up, like the iridescent foil cover, which looks like this, by the way, very shiny and chrome, then you can go into the add-ons and get them. I think they're $3 each for digital, $5 each for physical.
Okay.
So yeah, we've tried to game out any possible way that someone could want a combination of things. You can get it. But yeah, tons of variant covers and extra stuff. You can adopt a page, which is one of my favorite features. You get a page in the book, or you get to see the book before anyone else does. That's the first cool thing. And then we put your name on the page right there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do we have to clean the page up if anybody gets trash in their comic?
No, you do not.
Okay.
No. That's still our job. That is still our job. You just have your name on it, so it looks like you did a nice thing.
Okay.
No, and then so yeah, you get the foil cover, you get an exclusive variant cover, and you get an 11x17 print of the page that you adopted.
That's a really cool idea.
Cool.
We got Joey Galvez is in the chat, and he says, "I love Band of Bards, but I'm biased."
Me too,
you know what? I'm not biased. I love what they're doing. I have not worked with them as of yet, but I love what they're doing and how they're doing it. So, very excited to see what you may have in store with them in the future. So let's Will's kind of already done this, but let's jump over to another one. Rylan, we're going to give it a chance.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
So I'm going to pull up the page. Where did the first ideas of the jump come to you?
Yeah. So, let me get my my elevator pitch out.
That's true.
I'm a little bit worried. So, the jump is a paranoid thriller set in the world of astral projection. The quick elevator pitch, it is Inception meets The Bourne Identity if it were dripping with macabre, and directed by David Fincher. I think it's a pretty solid elevator pitch. It's very cerebral. One of the weird lines in my bio is that I happen to be an ordained Soto Zen Buddhist monk. So the spiritual, intellectual, philosophical pursuits are not foreign to me. But also my day job is I write action movies. I've written movies for Ridley Scott and J.J. Abrams and John Woo, Luc Besson.
Who are they?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just hacks. So this is a kick-ass action movie, in comic book form. The art team is Fabio Alves and Edson Ferreira, and the letter is HDE. They are the same team that did my my 4-time Ringo nominated book Banjax. Banjax was nominated for Best Series alongside Bitterroot and Something's Killing the Children. So these are some badass guys that are bringing this together. And to your question, where did the original idea come from? Well, so we wrapped up Banjax, and it did really well. It was on 10 critics 10 best lists in 2019, and 4 Ringo nominations and all that stuff. And I had these guys on the hook, and I did not want to let them go. And so, of course, I needed to get them on something else very quickly. And I write for a living, so I have stories lying around, and I easily could have taken something off the heap or off the shelf and said, hey, let's do this. But I think the best thing you can do when you have kind of artists like these is to go to them and be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? What are you going to be excited to draw every day for a long time? And usually when you go to an artist and ask them that, they sort of hem and haw. They don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know, maybe drawing a dragon would be nice, or but man, did Fabio have this in the holster. And it was, I did not get the question out. I was halfway through the question and he's like, this, and he didn't come to me with the story. I built the story out ultimately. Again, I write thrillers for a living, so this came pretty naturally. But he came to me with the world. So Fabio has for 15 years been an astral projector, and so the jump takes place in again in this world of astral projections. Basically, our protagonist Thomas, he goes through this sort of series of sort of crippling personal tragedies, and he's able to sort of, he takes refuge in this online community of astral projectors, and it turns out he's very good at it, and eventually he sort of gets co-opted by this group that's trying to fight a war on the astral plane. So again, Fabio is part of an online group of people who do this. And so we didn't Google this shit. I didn't go to Wikipedia and look up astral projection.
You got to go to the source, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He took me by the hand and he took me into this world, and I met the people and listened to their stories and the adventures they went on. I've written in Hollywood for 16 plus years now. And so I fall in love with the world first, the people in it. And I try not to Google anything. I try to live it. The script that broke me was this script called The Ghost and the Wolf. And it was about a Russian Armenian gang war in Los Angeles. And, I could have just wrote it and it would have been terrible. And it would have been cliche. It would have been basically stuff I'd seen before in other movies. But instead I got a friend to introduce me to an Armenian bookie who took me to the clubs where all these guys hang out, and I met another guy, and he introduced me to another guy who introduced me to a guy who ran a Russian contraband house. And so I met all these guys. I lived with these guys for a couple of months, and then I wrote the script, and the script came alive. And so I did the same thing here. And so, yeah, it is a kick you in the teeth, Hollywood thrill ride, in this sort of cerebral astral projection world. And it's smart, it's sexy, it's a lot of fun. Issues 1 and 2 were funded on Kickstarter very successfully, and so we're back with issue 3 here. If you're an old friend, great, come get issue 3. And if you're new to the party, you can catch up. We have our whole catalog available, and then also we've been doing books for a long time, so we have signed copies of Banjax and Aberrant, and I do a Fargo-esque crime drama on Kickstarter called The Peacekeepers also, which is badass. I just did a book with Source Point Press, another kaiju joint, called Suicide Jockeys that was received very well. So yeah, you can get all that. I have rare con variants available here, but plenty to do. And we've had a lot of fun with these Kickstarters. I try to make them as interactive as possible. I mean, spent years putting books in comic shops, and it's kind of like screaming in the Grand Canyon. You don't really hear back from people, but on Kickstarter, if these things come to life and you hear from people immediately. And so we try to make it as interactive as possible. And so you can get black and white and full color commissions from Fabio and Edson, get a Ringo Award winning artist, do anything you want. We have a lot of opportunities for you to actually be in the book. We can put you in the background. We can make you a supporting character and give you lines. People tend to line up for those. But I think our coolest tier here, and something that's very unique, is we have a put you on the cover tier.
Cool.
And so we are known. I mean, starting with Aberrant, our first book. We had these great. If you scroll down more, you can actually see some of the. But we had a Gremlins cover for San Diego Comic-Con. We had a Rocky IV cover that people went wild for. We had a Karate Kid cover, and so with the Jump, there's our Roadhouse cover. But yeah. So scroll down just a bit to those Jump covers. Scroll down one more. So for issue 1, we had a Ghostbusters variant. We had an Ice Cube Today Was a Good Day variant. Scroll down a little more. So
I'm stuck on the Karate Kid on the far right. That must have been one of the ones that I didn't see.
Oh yeah, I'm not seeing it. Okay, so
I'm just joking about the Risque variant.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. For issue 2, we had a Back to the Future variant, a Mandalorian variant, a Magnum PI variant, and then we have a Knight Rider variant and a Last Dragon Shonuff variant this go round. And so we do a digital version where we can put you on any of our covers. And people tend to go wild for that. But we have another tier that's only available for the issue 3 covers this time, where we will put you on a physical issue. So you back that tier. Our artist draws you in, as Michael Knight, as Shonuff, and we will send you 2 copies of the comic book with your beautiful face on it.
That's awesome.
And people, like I said, people have gone crazy with it. We've had the Back to the Future cover was really popular the last go around when we did it, and it was really cool. We had couples coming on because you have Doc and Marty on the cover, and so you would have husband as Marty, wife as Doc. There was a couple that used it as their wedding invitation.
Cool.
We had people, we helped people print up 50 issue runs that they gave out to family members and sold to promote podcasts. And, so it's, go ahead.
I'm looking at your prices for some of the original art, like a 6x6 original piece for $50 on Kickstarter. That is for the art that I'm seeing from this team. That is a really good value. That's not exorbitant for what people are getting.
Yeah, and we're very flexible about it. If there's something specific you're looking for, with the original book, the original art that's related to the book, we can sort of make sure you get it. And then again, like if you want something specific, I mean, we had people tend to love Fabio and Edson, and so we've had lawyers come in and have them do logos for their. There was one guy who was he's a cannabis lawyer, a very popular cannabis lawyer. And so they came in and they did the logo for his, for his business. And so, yeah, like literally anything, if you want a picture of your neighbor copulating with a goat, we can do it for you. We'll laugh about it. But yeah. Yeah. So, and the bottom line is all of this stuff grew out of us interacting with our backers, right? It's like, what do you want to see? What aren't we doing well? And so all of this stuff happened. We have this really great tier. It's expensive, but we will draw a 5-page story that takes place in the world of the Jump, starring you. And we sell at least one every time. We've already sold one. And people get really excited about it. And this isn't a story that I have just sitting in my back pocket. Like, we're not putting you into a generic story, right? I get on the phone with you. I say, hey, what are you into? What do you want to explore? With the last one we did, the guy, he had this amazing dog. And he's like, I don't care what you do. I just want my dog in it. And so we wrote this story about him and his dog doing some criminal shit. And he wanted to be wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And we did that. And he flipped for it. And it was awesome, but I think the best one we ever did is this guy in the last Jump campaign, guy buys the original story, and then I almost immediately get 3 people who buy Draw Me Into the Book rewards, and I'm like, wow, that's weird. Like we just got 4 premium backers right in a row, and you assume, because the draw me in, tier is usually we're going to put you in the regular book. And I start getting messages from these guys, and they're like, no, we don't want to be in the regular book. Our friend just bought the original story, and so we want to be in his original story
with his dog.
Well, yeah, and so literally 4 people paid to be in the story, and so I was communicating with all 4 of these people, and it's like, well, let's get to know you. What's your personality like? What should what should your shtick be? What should all these?
Do you want to live? Do you want to die?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you learn a lot about somebody when it's like, kill me immediately and kill me, and as gruesome a way as possible.
Right.
Yeah, and so we just have a lot of fun. And I mean, here's the thing: is like there are a lot of people that are just on Kickstarter selling books, and that's great. And you need a great story first, right? But you pay a premium, right, on Kickstarter, and so we're just trying like hell to make this a premium bonkers experience for everybody. And so I think you're going to find some of that stuff here, and if there's something you don't see that you want, let us know, and I'll probably throw it up there in a couple of days. So
yeah, you don't sound too you sound pretty flexible. That's great.
Yeah.
I try to be flexible, but I find like about 2 weeks into a campaign, my brain shuts down.
Yeah.
And people are like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, I would like to answer this tomorrow because I don't have the capacity tonight. And then the next day, I'm always like, yes, I can. And here it is. But it's great that you can be flexible even in the middle of a campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm getting over being sick, so a lot of this is still. But didn't mean to interrupt.
You know what? We are here for your health and your health only.
Thank you.
Yes. But all right. So actually, let's use. There is no segue from a cough to another comment, but I'm going to do it. Let's check out Band of Bards Amongst the Stars. I'm going to pull it up. So you said this was an open submission. So whose idea was it to start a sci-fi romance anthology?
Yeah, so that's really started with Elise Russell and I. So Elise Russell, pretty good prose writer, a friend of mine in the comics community, and we were just messaging one day. I had hired her to do some fill-in work for me for some an Ad Astra Media webtoon that I write for them, and then we became pretty friendly after that. And she said, let's do something together. And she said, what about co-curating an anthology? And that kind of blew my mind because I was like, I've never done that before, but I'm game to do it. What would be really interesting and captivating to draw people in? Because we knew we wanted to do an open submission, except for inviting one pair, which was Fellhound, arguably one of the best artists around right now, huge fan, and Brent Fisher, arguably one of the best indie writers around right now. I'm biased because I'm just a huge fan, and so we said we can build something around this to let people know we're serious, right? Like we've invited really good people to start this off. Did an open submission, had 140 people submit, and the talent pretty much blew me away. I've said this on every podcast or show I've been on. Like, talent is like a bell-shaped curve, right? Or stories are. You're going to get some really crappy ones. You're going to get a lot of pretty good ones, and you're going to get some amazing ones. There was a lot of pretty good stuff that came through. And so we tried to just advance things into different rounds and said, okay, here's semifinal, here's final. And really when it came down to it, what we found was that a lot of the stuff that made it to that final round could have actually gone into the anthology, but we just didn't have space for it, or the stories that we wanted didn't complement each other quite well enough, or they were too similar to others. So there's some very good ones that we would have liked to have picked, but ultimately you have finite space. Right. But as you can see from what we chose, we feel like we were pretty solid on the talent that we brought in, even though there was some that didn't make it. Like Tango's art here, you're going through Tango. is a phenomenal artist. Actually working, I'm gonna definitely plug some of my friends' stuff too, because Tango's working on Kevin Smith's Quick Stops, which is just phenomenal. So in the last year that we had this open submission, we've seen sort of the stars kind of go through the roof for some of these individuals. Like Damien Becton working on Worlds Away is a great talent. Batali actually was the first story that we actually picked from the open submission process. He emailed me living in the Ukraine. The war had just broken out, and he said, hey man, I don't know what's going to happen. Here's my story. And if you ultimately choose it and I'm not around to give you permission, like you have my permission to print my story. And I read it and I was just blown away. His art, his preview art, you can see is great. The whole thing was already finished. And I just immediately messaged Elise and said, I don't know that I cannot take this story. It's really, really good. And we had some kind of fun surprises too, like Carolyn Leelane from Money Shot submitted a story with Rachel Suze. I was a huge Carolyn Leelane fan because I'm a huge Money Shot fan with Tim Seeley, and so that was really fun to see. And also we have like Linz McLeod, who's a great prose writer, submitted a story with Miranda Layson, and the list really just goes on and on. As a curator, Elise and I did decide up front, we were like, if we want to, it's our anthology, by God, we're gonna put something in if we want to, under the same page constraints as we would put on anyone else. I wrote a 2-page story and worked with Sid Mills, the fantasy artist, and that was really fun. And Taylor Esposito did the letters. Yeah, here you're showing Lady Tiger with Katie Brown and Sarah Fletcher. They work on a great series, Ruination, and that was a real good surprise to see them submit. So all these stories have very different styles. It's all there based on their interpretation of sci-fi romance. That was the prompt. We basically gave people an open-ended, give us whatever you got that's in the sci-fi romance realm. It can be a hard R. We just don't want a lot of gratuitous sex. You can have nudity, but that was it. Very, very open. And what we got was all over the place. And it was great because it gave us a lot of different selections to choose from. Everything from breakups to first romances, just really overall captivating stories. And kind of something funny that we figured out after the fact, a lot of guys from this comic book group called the Phoenix Comic Collective, which ultimately turned out to be really good pitchers because like half of those guys got in this thing. And I looked at it after the fact and said, holy God, this is like a lot of those people from that. But hey, if you can pitch, you can pitch. I will say Doug Wood, who's left comics right now due to this health reasons. We potentially have his last story in comics. I hope that's not the case because he's a very talented writer. And talk about a pitcher. He knows how to pitch. Like his story was absolutely perfect in terms of short log line, give me the nitty gritty of the story, submit some art along with it to captivate me. It was perfect and hard not to pick. The Long Meadow Road right there. You can see that with Federica Manson, just a really good artist.
Well, I want to stop you for a second here. This obviously we're seeing a page or two from each story. We don't know what the stories are. The quantity and quality of this art is exemplary. I mean, every single thing that I've seen so far has been extremely eye-catching, extremely dynamic. I mean, the art you have in this anthology is incredible.
Thank you. We tried. We really wanted something eye-catching. I feel comics is a visual medium, right? I very much believe that it has to be eye-catching right away before you're even invested in the story itself. You can actually have kind of a crappy story and it be forgiven if you have great art. So that's how I saw a phenomenal artist, I was like, ooh, that's really difficult. Now, if the pitch wasn't all that up to snuff, we did turn down some great art, but that was very challenging to do because I'm kind of an art snob. into the rewards sections. I think we've got a pretty competitively priced offering with a lot of different good stuff to choose from. So got the digital Bard, got 4 different covers that you can pick from. We hit up Carolyn Lee Lane again. We got to have a cover from her. Rio Burton, really great artist. As of the Barbed with Pat Shand from Scout, phenomenal work. So, you're getting something great from her. Terry Suska did a cover for us, and Anamia, the cosplayer. So, yeah, so quite the selection for an anthology, and just really all over the place in terms of stories. So hopefully would love people to check it out. We're about a week out and we have a very big uphill climb. That's one of the reasons we partnered with Band of Bards. We pitched it to them after release, and I realized that, we need more reach for this. The goal to get this done will be big because we're paying a pretty competitive page rate to make sure that every team is compensated adequately, and everything's gone up, right? Printing costs, shipping. Yeah. So we had to increase the goal from what we thought a couple of times in our meetings with them. So working with them helped expand our reach a little bit, but at the same time, we're up against a lot of great stuff on Kickstarter. There's a ton of great books out there, and some things that you would think would have funded by now that just haven't. And I think it just shows that there's a lot of things happening in the market. There's a lot of really good stuff. And maybe, inflation and things, people might be a little short on cash. I don't know. And the fact that Hairology took a little bit longer to fund, which I talked about, I was like, man, this is a great anthology. This has got to get across the finish line. But then, like a freaking meteor, or a rocket, I should say, it funded $10,000 like in a week. So that was really cool to see.
I mean, Kat and Phil are actually close friends, and I'm extremely excited to see their book introduced by some lady named Gail Simone. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's
that?
Whoever that is.
Yeah. I was like, are you kidding me? I was a little angry at them, but only in that I can't believe you did this, guys. But it's a great. I'm super excited for them to get to work with her, even just to get a forward from Gail is amazing. But yeah, and anthologies they can sometimes be tough to get rolling. And once they get rolling, the teams get working. I mean, you talked about Brant and Fellhound. I'm thinking of the Soderbergh talk about Don Cheadle. Like he once said, if you can get Don Cheadle in your movie, put Don Cheadle in your movie. If you can get Brant and Fellhound in your comic, put Brent and Fellhound in your comic. It's the talent and the actually they're as good people as they are talented, and they're extremely talented. And I'm excited to see James Ferguson is in there, the Horror Talk guy who once ran across New York Comic-Con to get a Eric Palicki autograph for me because I couldn't leave my booth. So he did a 1.5 hour run across the Javits Center for me. So yeah, I'll do anything for James Ferguson if I can pay that back.
That's great. Yeah, great writer, great story. Got a good submission in there. So yeah, I mean, we're hopeful. We definitely want to push it. It's been a really great group to work with. And like I said, some unknown people that I didn't follow and had no idea who they were. So one thing about indie comics, you kind of know who some people are, and you see some familiar names, and you're like, oh, okay, this person submitted. And there were some that I didn't love, like the artist Siegfried in their really cool art. Just like all the writers on the anthology are like, hey, dibs on his next project to see if he wants to work with anybody. I mean, yeah, it's a really good group of people, and I'm hopeful to see their upward trajectory in the future on their various projects.
No, I'm excited, and you've got a full week. Yes, you do have. You've got some stuff to make up, but we're gonna try to get the try to get the snowball rolling for you. And
if I can second what he's saying, I know for a fact that this anthology has to have some like incredible talent on it for very personal reasons, both because I know a bunch of them and because I was rejected from this anthology. I must be very competitive.
You know what?
You had a good pitch. I remember
yeah.
a lot of the pitches. It wasn't bad at all.
I'm sure. No, it was.
Yeah.
The first person I went to with that story was Fel. And I was like, hey, would you like to draw this for this anthology? And she was like, I would, but I'm actually drawing this other story with, they asked me to do it with friends. I was like, damn it. Then at that point, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm not getting it if I don't have Fel's art, but I will try.
Jimmy had a really fun story too.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so there was a lot of really good ones, and it's so hard to.
I was going to ask you, like, how do you when you come down to the wire, how do you make those decisions? Honestly, is it all just gut feeling, or do you have to like break out metrics? Like, what about it?
Well, he didn't even read yours; it just went straight in the trash.
It was just like, well, out of here.
There's some that we just kind of went with that we knew we had to have. We're like, I have to have the tallies. I'm like, this is just too good of a story. He's too talented. Like, it's so good. I just felt like this call that I had to have it. I was super biased when I saw Carolyn's name submitted because we didn't blind it, but ultimately we tried to be really impartial, but she had a great submission with Rachel Sue's. I mean, I even saw that Richard Pace online was talking about submitting it, and I was like, you should. And I've said this on every podcast I've been on, but I was like, it'd be so hard to say no if Richard Pace submitted to the anthology. I'd be super biased. I'd be like, oh my God, like, how do we not take his? Sorry, Richard, that's not good enough. You're gonna have to come back next time.
and like I know what you said, but it's not really about. It's about creating an album. You know, you're not putting your 14 best songs on your album. You're putting the 14 songs that work best together as an album. Now you can just put it all on Spotify. So now that's very dated thing, but I think
it's accurate though.
I'm looking around the screen. I think we all get the album metaphor on this screen.
No, I remember I helped program the Ann Arbor Film Festival for a couple of years, and I remember we would whittle it down to like 100 films that were all great and were all worthy of being in the festival. And then it was like, okay, well, we have these themes and we need to pick a diverse group of films that all interact with each other. And, you know, on Wednesday night, it's, you know, this theme night. And so let's find the 10 films that we can, you know, put in this night. And then you end up with, you know, 20 sitting on the sidelines that, you know, great films that, you know, in fact, sometimes we'd be like, hey, submit this next year. You know, you know, and then we get them in then, and that's a tough job. I don't envy you.
Yeah,
that is why we had to wait 20 years for Everywhere All at Once. Like,
well,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about what works together, what's complementary. In all honesty, because we wanted to keep it close to 100 pages, we probably could have done 150. You know, thinking about it, but we just didn't have. We knew that we couldn't afford to do it.
Like, right, because
honestly, there was enough talent in there to do 150 pages.
But every team you come up, you have to, you know,
that's
then the ask has to go up.
Yeah, everything goes up. So realistically, it just wouldn't work. But yeah, and I mean, rejection is tough. Elise did all those. I did all the feedback for people that requested it because I said, you know, we said, if anybody wants feedback, we will give it to you. Because some people, you could tell that they were a little new. And I always appreciated when I was new getting honest feedback. What can I work on? And sometimes people are too busy to provide that. But I wanted to make sure that we provided that. Not everybody took me up on it, but we did a handful of people. And some people were just really green and didn't know how to pitch appropriately. Like they didn't know that I don't need the history of the world in there. I need to be captivated by a story in as few sentences as possible because I got stuff to do. Like I gotta get rolling here. You got to really sell this on me. Or the art just wasn't quite ready for prime time. Again, visual medium, like it wasn't like it was bad, but it was like, you know, it's just not there quite yet. Like this isn't going to look like something that we can ultimately sell. And that could have hurt somebody's pitch too, if they had teamed with an artist that maybe we knew wasn't going to quite work in the anthology. But I had Elise do all that. She's better with directions. I'm too nice. Like
she will break you down, man. Elise is great. I love Elise.
Yeah, really talented writer. Yeah, good
super
person.
friendly and just a wonderful person.
I did hear that Elise channeled Burt Reynolds and told everybody, "Fuck off, kid."
Hey, a quick question for everyone, really. So I'm fulfilling Crossover Division 4 right now, and printing was a bit more this time, and so the prices of everything are going up. We just talked a little bit about how that impacted, trying to keep the size of the anthology down to 100 pages. How's that hitting, Ryland? How's that hitting you and Wells? What are you seeing out there, and how are you kind of bobbing and weaving to keep it, from knocking you out?
Staying one step ahead is hard because you never know how much, it's going to cost until you actually print it. I did find that this last time that I had to print something, it was a little bit cheaper actually than the time before it. So I think, when we fulfilled Frankenstein #1, Frankenstein the Unconquered #1, my horror series, that one was just brutal out of pocket, way more than we expected. That was like at the height of the paper shortage. And then we fulfilled Mechaton #3 in January of this year, and it was like $300-400 less for the same amount of books. So at least on my end, it seems like it's getting better. That said, yeah, I try and have a healthy approach to if we hit this much, this pays for the art, and I'm okay with paying everything else out of pocket, and I budgeted for that. But yeah, no, it can get very dicey if you're not careful with those margins, which is why most of our add-ons fit into the sleeve with the comic. I don't have like crazy like action figures or anything because the packaging on that would just blow up the budget immensely.
I think the good news is that we seem to be, for the most part, coming out the other side of this paper shortage, which was the really tough thing. I mean, we're not completely back to where we used to be, but things are better. People aren't knifing people for paper in alleys anymore. So that's a big thing. I mean, I think that right now you need to not be scared to shop around a little bit. You may go back to your normal printer and you may get a higher price, but you call 2 or 3 more and you may find a better situation. I'm hearing horror stories about people that are getting stuff printed in China and and whatnot. So that's always a huge roll of the dice. I don't think I'd go that far, but
prints in America. That's my that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I think Will, it's what you're doing right now is you're just checking in with other people. I mean, that's what I have the 3 or 4 people that I just before I run something, I'm always like, hey, where are you getting stuff printed? What are you looking? What are you running into? What are you looking at? And I mean, it's the beauty of this community. It's the beauty of this pursuit is that we all share information. And I only do this because people like Charlie Stickney kind of took me under their wing. And
that guy, you got to hear about that guy again.
That dick. And I just try to do it for as many people as I can also, and pay that forward. And but yeah, so that's all I do is like, it's going to be different every time you step to the plate. Right. So it's like, okay, well, what does the table look like now? But we seem to be through the worst of it, but it's still pretty weird right now, huh?
Yeah, I reached out to Comic Impressions because they've done some of my last stuff, and they got hit by the hurricane last year. So I didn't shop around. I just reached out and said, hey, this next one I definitely want to go with you. Get a little money. They're a 2-hour drive for me, so worst case scenario, I can drive over and pick it up and drive back in the same day.
You know where to find them if things go wrong.
I can find them, but more importantly, I can be bagging and boarding the same evening that the books are printed, if need be. There was one time where they were done on a Friday, and they said we can mail it and you can get it on the Monday, and I said, wow, I can see you at 4 p.m. You still going to be there? And they said, yep. Honey, you're picking up the kid from school. But they quoted me a price, and it's going to cost me the amount for the comic that I sold my first floppy for. So it's, they're still, recuperating from the hurricane, still recuperating for the paper shortage. I use like real heavy paper, and, cause I'm a dumb, but when it comes down to it, the next book I'll probably, check out, and I'll say names, Charlie Stickney brought up, there's a group called Color Vision that he's really happy to have worked with. They do offset and digital. We've all heard of Mixum, we've Comics Wellspring, Kablam, and Print Ninja is apparently starting a small batch digital printing in the United States.
Okay.
So look into them on your thing. And for a boutique, really nice, this is almost all offsets. You're going to be doing 1,000, 2,000. Sam at Print Lore is a genius. She is the best in the business. So if you're doing a boutique style book, I always recommend reaching out to Print Lore to see if Sam can make your book like something that people will want to frame. So one thing I want to talk about, Joey Galvez, who lets us hang out on his network, Geek Collective. He actually has something. So if anybody out there is a Kickstarter creator and you're thinking of shipping, we always recommend Gemini mailers. You don't have to, but it is the Cadillac of shipping. There is actually a Geek Collective 10% savings on Gemini mailers. So I'm going to find the banner. It is Geek Collective 10. So you go to the Gemini, you just, I don't know, do the Googles, Gemini mailers, and you get on their website and you can do Geek Collective 10 and get 10% off. So we're talking about fulfilling and booking them.
You will catch me on Twitter, like drunkenly raving like a lunatic about how people need to like. To me, it's like it's nearly a respect thing where it's like, yes, Gemini mailers aren't just like good; they are a way to show that you actually care that it got to people's houses in one piece. Because the amount of damage I have seen comics sustain through the paper thin, like people, especially if you're sending it through media mail, they don't care. They do not care about your book. They will destroy it.
I had a backer reach out to me and say, I'm really sorry, but the back cover of the comic is ripped off. And I went, what? And she said, the back cover is ripped off. And I went, well, either I was really drunk when I was bagging and boarding. And I mean, I was a little drunk, but I don't think I did that. I think that some very, very, we'll say passionate post office worker picked the comic out to find ads in it, which aren't in it, so that he could send it back to me, realized that I hadn't cheated the system, and he just shoved it back in and ripped her comic in half. So yes, they don't, but that's the one time that I've been told a media mail has been ruined, and one other time it got sent back to me. So I'm not saying not to use media mail, and I'm not saying I love the post office, but that one person,
who knows?
Well, it's we pour so much blood, sweat, tears, love into every one of these books. I'm not just going to throw it in a manila envelope and send it out because it will get destroyed. There's no.
I've had that before. I've received that. Literally no bag, no board in an envelope, and it was so damaged. And I was like, and then ultimately reading it, the comic wasn't that good either. So I felt just ripped off completely because I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand, right? It's like somebody doesn't care that much about the product that they're just throwing it in an envelope. And it showed because I was like, but that's me. I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Somebody might have loved it. I didn't, maybe because I was bitter because it was destroyed.
But I mean, you're charging them for shipping and handling. So figure out what a fucking Gemini mailer costs.
Yeah.
Figure out what a premium bag and board costs.
100%.
Figure out what good tape costs, and then package the fuck out of that shit. Charge them that that amount, and then send it to them and get it there safely.
Or you can pull what Charlie Stickney does. He does a full on custom box and then wraps that in another box. So you can go thermonuclear like Charlie.
Just look at that. It's why he's the best. I mean, look.
If I was gonna say, if I made 50,000 on my last comic book, I would also I'd package it in 3.
Yeah,
I'd do 3 boxes. I don't care.
Yeah, I think we're all just trying to get his and Pat Shan level, right? We're just all trying to, get there.
I'm just trying to get to Cat Calamia level, honestly.
Me too.
and they're trying to get to Brian Polito level.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh God, yeah. I just saw that. I was like, $500,000. Oh man, pretty good.
Yeah. Wasn't there didn't Kickstarter send out a list of the top 10 comics projects? Where did I see that? That was a few weeks ago, maybe?
Polito had 3 or 4 of the top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
God
and at the
bless
same time,
everyone.
One of the more fascinating things about Kickstarter that I find is, on the one hand, yes, it's fascinating to see like these massive projects getting made. And on the other hand, you look at something like Galarian, which just came off one. How many backers did it have? 1,400, 1,500?
Something like that.
That is a pretty small number of people, all things considered. And to be that successful and to pull, to have that much acclaim behind it. And I'm not trying to diminish that. I think that's a wonderful thing.
It sounds like you are.
No, I'm not trying to diminish it at all. I think that's amazing that you as a creator can find, between say 500 and 800 people or 1,400 people and make that your entire living. That's incredible. That is not something that is available to so many people.
Yeah. I mean, the bar is set so much lower. You're right. Where I was talking about this with somebody earlier today, and I have sold tens of thousands of books in comic shops and not made a goddamn dime. Right. And if I get 300 people to back a Kickstarter, then I've made my budget back and more. Yeah. And that's pretty substantial. And, I mean, it leads to a larger question. It's like, there are certainly things that some publishers can offer you, but the lion's share of these publishing companies out there can offer you very little that you can't go out and find on your own. And that's a problem for them. It's a problem for comic shops. And that's all getting legislated in a sometimes very ugly way right now.
And another thing is the backers are part of the team. Whereas I never felt like when I went into the comic shop and I bought X-Men that I was helping Chris Claremont's dream come true.
Yeah.
Right.
But when I back someone's project, I know I'm helping their dream come true. I don't think it. I know it. And I've said this before. I back a lot of comics, and not every comic is for anyone. There is a comic that Wells might think is the greatest book he's read this year that it doesn't jive with me. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's called Coffin Bound.
But even when I get those books that don't jive with me, I'm like, I'm so glad I backed that. I might not back the next one because it wasn't for me, but that creator's work got out, and it's going to find the person that it's for because of that. And it's just a different experience on both ends as a creator and as a consumer. And that's one of the things that I am addicted to about crowdfunding. I'm addicted to that. How we're all, and here's 5 creators. I've heard names before, but I've never spoken to you guys. We've been talking for an hour, and I feel like, my 3 new buddies, just because we sort of do the same thing. We make comics and we crowdfund it, and it's amazing community. And I don't want to get too philosophical.
Yeah. I mean, the community, we vet each other, right? It was like I knew, you came to me and I didn't know you. I knew of you, like you're talking about. You said, "Hey, we do this show. Would you like to come on?" and I immediately had 4 people that I could ask who were like, yeah, that guy's great. The show is awesome. You should absolutely do it. And you know, I mean, we don't allow assholes in the community. You know what I'm saying? So if someone was invited on the show, you know, before you invited me, you probably asked 5 people about me, and they all said, yeah, he's a good guy to have on. I love that. It's like this self-policing community, and we all lift each other up or get the fuck out, right?
That's very true. Yeah, it's really kind of a market in flux too, right? Like it seems like numbers in the direct market are dwindling a little bit, right? So numbers, I haven't looked at them in a while, but I did recently, and I was kind of surprised to see titles that I felt like would do really well amongst probably, you know, not in the top 3 to 4 publishers, but beyond that, maybe something that you think is popular maybe sells 1,000 copies right now. So things are really in flux, and partially I think there's a number of reasons. It's probably economic factors. Also, there's a lot of saturation out there, right? There's a lot of comics. There's more publishers right now than there's been probably in the last 10 years, right? There's a ton of them. So we're going to see that kind of shake out a little bit. For me right now, and probably for you guys, I think you probably agree, the only path forward really I feel right now is truly to do Kickstarter or crowdfunding. And then if you can do a direct market edition, that's almost the icing on the cake to say, okay, I'm going to put this out with no guarantee that I'll actually even get anything back, but potentially it'll reach some people that didn't see the Kickstarter before. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with Band of Bards and some of my other publishers is like, you know, I'm probably going to kickstart this first or second, depending. I'm kind of playing with that. But I'll also do a direct market edition because I am loyal to the direct market. I do feel like we need to support comic book shops. So I want to put stuff out there. But for me to make anything back on this, there's no option anymore. And for me not to do a Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to do both in that, like,
you're doing
the direct market is such a you know, monster in terms of not getting feedback, not really knowing what's working, and not really knowing how much you're gonna like get a return on that investment. You know, if I spend on average, you know, $4,000 per comic to make a comic, I spend 20 grand on a 5-issue arc to put it out into the world, and fingers crossed, hope I make my money back. That's a pretty massive investment.
Gamble.
And really that is what it is a gamble. Whereas, you know, that's sort of what we're doing with Mechaton. Mechaton is being published by Scoot, the YA imprint of Scout. The first issue comes out on the 29th of this month.
Nice.
And which is great. And they're doing #1 and they're doing the trade. But if they said, okay, yeah, we'll do it, you just have to, you know, make the comic and pay for everything, we would have been like, oh, well, there's no comic because no, like,
we do have a cover. We do have a cover.
Yeah, this is a Wendy's. I'm a waiter. I don't have that kind of money lying around.
Well, I want to reach in. Joey put in a really good question in the chat. I'm going to put it up to whoever wants to answer. How do you explain the state of crowdfunding to someone who may not be within the community as much as we are? I know Joey's kind of about to bring out his first ever published book, so I think there's something behind that question. Is how can he talk to people who aren't versed in crowdfunding about what crowdfunding is?
I think the most success that I have with it is to think of it as a pre-order for, like, just truly a pre-ordering system for people that you have a lot more access to than you would in the direct market. So you can pre-order an X-Men book, and is it going to be good? Is it not? I don't know, but Wolverine might be in it. So sure. As opposed to going to Kickstarter, you go around, you look for books that interest you specifically. And if you have questions, there's an FAQ, you can literally just ask the person. Even if you find them, like, you know, normally inaccessible. I forget their name, but the people who did a thing called Truth, the 2 women on that, I had read their book as a critic for Comic Book Yeti, and that book is extremely well done and very professional. They recently did the Kickstarter for Volume 2, and I didn't even think they would answer me, but I just threw out a question for them, and within like 10 minutes, they got back to me and were like, yeah, no, this, and this. So it's amazing how much access you have to really talented creative people, and that can help inform your decision. We all have a limited amount of money to spend, so why wouldn't you go for stuff that interests you and you very specifically?
The most important thing for me, I mean, that I'm noticing is it's about sort of variety and representation and diversity.
Absolutely.
For decades, if not longer. If you were Black, if you were gay, if you were disabled, if whatever, a woman, you walked into a comic shop and you turn right back around. You could pick 200 books off the shelf and you did not see yourself, right? And now, no matter what your bag is, you can go on a Kickstarter. And you can find not one, not two, but probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books that speak directly to you. And that is fucking monumental. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's it sounds a little bit weird coming from 5 white guys, in their 30s and 40s sitting here, but
I'm 29, thank you.
Listen, I want you guys to know I did reach out to a 4th white guy to be on the show.
No, but here's the thing: is that this is great. This is great for everyone, because it's our business we were stuck in the corner with a dunce cap on, right. And now so many people are so many new people are being introduced to the ecosystem, right? And yeah, someone may come onto Kickstarter because they're looking for a very specific comic where they see themselves, but they may also love the jump. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it works. And it is growing this community. It's growing this medium. And that's what's interesting, is that we're seeing a big contraction in traditional publishing. Comic shops are most certainly in danger. And that sucks. But what's happening on the other side, the other edge of that sword is that this business, this pursuit is growing in a very meaningful and very different way. And I think people ignore that too often.
Very true.
One nice thing about Kickstarter too is really, I feel like anything can almost succeed on there. You look at all these projects that are on there. There's young adults. There's LGBTQ plus. Erotica seems to do really well on Kickstarter. Where
erotica does well on the internet.
What? Well, it's interesting because when I was a kid going to the comic shop getting comics, there was hardly anything that you could you wouldn't see erotica. Like Fantagraphics had your Eros line, and that's largely gone away. But now there's this whole erotica. I mean, it makes sense. It's the internet. So it's really interesting. And look, people are being really successful with it. One thing too that you're finding success with is publishers, which I don't begrudge them at all, are going on to Kickstarter and finding success with things like, look at Witchblade. Witchblade did $100,000 or $200,000 of old reprints from the 90s, but issue 1 of the new comic that comes out, who knows how successful it'll be, but nostalgia seems to play really well on Kickstarter too. So it's really interesting. It's almost a home for everything. Everything is available there, and anything can have success. It just has to be good is really the shtick, I think.
I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but a very experienced crowdfunder was asked by a crowdfunder who had tried a couple of campaigns and had really been struggling. Man, I have a really great book here and I just can't sell it to anybody. What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? And experienced crowdfunder looked him dead in the eye and said, man, you need to think very seriously about boobs.
I have a sexy woman on the cover of my comics, and I do not at all pretend that isn't very helpful. We don't do a TNA book, but we do a book that stars a sexy, fashionable woman, and it's part of the secret sauce of Tart, and I don't run from it.
Oh, you do. Oh, I don't know why I didn't put that together that you did.
Oh,
Tart,
I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a good comment.
Frankenstein the Unconquered #2 featured our first ever not safe for work cover. Guess what? Our most successful campaign by a long mile is.
I bought that from Flop. I mean, yeah, I'm a fan.
It's a good cover. It's a great cover.
It's a great cover. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it helps. I say do what you got to do. Like, if you want to find success, and you got to do some things to say, okay, you know, maybe I didn't think about an erotic cover originally, but it sells in the market. It might get some eyes on it. And
I wouldn't do it for Mechaton.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I don't want to say that's what's killing Mechaton or anything like that. No, but like that's a legitimate struggle that we had. Is like, okay, well, we have some formula for success here.
Yeah.
This is an all ages book with robots and giant insects and female bodied people that are not sexualized in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And it would feel really awkward and terrible to like put a cheesecake cover on that.
Yeah.
So instead what we did is more homage and nostalgia kind of covers. So we have a Transformers movie cover, a Super Metroid, Fantastic Four #1, and a Pride cover, a queer Pride cover.
Did
really
Fellhound do that?
Ile Gonzalez did that one. And she actually, we first worked together on a short story in By Visibility, Cap Calamitas.
Got it.
Cap.
So we
Cat
got
Phil's
paired,
book.
we got paired together. What's that one called? Gay Panic was the name of that story. And yeah, I loved working with Ile and asked her to make the cover, and she was more than happy to.
Yeah, and Shawnee did say, it has to fit the content. Absolutely. It is if you have something sort of sexy, you can push the cover. If your book is a 7, your cover can be an 8 or a 9 on the sexy meter. But if your book is a 4, don't have the nudity.
You know what else? You know what else does well? Cthulhu.
Yes,
Cthulhu does well on Kickstarter.
but no one's tried naked Cthulhu.
Yeah. I guess.
Look, I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to pick and choose. It's like if you feel like you have a character that you could have sex appeal for, do it. Obviously, it's not going to work for Mechaton. Like, that doesn't make any sense to put it on there. But I would say don't be scared to do it or to have people give you shit for it or whatever. We're all trying to make comics and put good stuff out there. And sometimes like some of these things can be eye-catching and people might gravitate towards them, but it has to fit. Like, it has to make sense to do.
Yeah. I stopped on the Risque cover for The Jump. It's super sexy image, obviously amazing artist. I think that probably works. I haven't read the book yet, so I can't say it works for the book, but I wouldn't want you to do that on Amongst the Stars too sexy, because
it doesn't work.
I could be confused on what I'm getting with a romance book. Exactly. But it is everybody's choice how they do it. And, that's kind of the cool thing too. Every creator gets to make these decisions for their own project. And if it doesn't work, you try something different the next time.
And I'll say, while we're on the subject, the cover we were talking about earlier, the Flops cover, that we did for Frankenstein #2, when we had the idea, let's do a little TNA for the cover, how do we make that like fit the book? And what we found was, like, the more we sort of molded it to the book instead of the other way around, trying to mold the book to the nudity, it made it a lot more interesting and fun. The first thing that came back, it's the picture is the Bride of Frankenstein and like like Dracula's bride, like a vampire on there, and the vampire is covered in blood, and the Frankenstein is scarred up. The first one we got back, the scars were pretty minimal. The blood was just kind of a drizzle, and they were like, "Oh, we wasn't sure this is enough," and we were like, "Flops." More and like make it more monstrous, make it scarier, and kind of bring that element out more. And it made the cover a lot better, and it made the image a lot more striking. So I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to do that kind of cover, figure out a way to do it different and make it work with the material.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, for an example, I'll say that with Bear of Ages, my last Kickstarter, it has some nudity in the book. We put none on the Kickstarter promo pages. There's no nudity on there. I didn't show any of it because I was like, these aren't the most captivating pages, but it is in the book. But we just didn't like have it front and center for any reason because I just felt like it didn't work. I was actually talking with the team about it, the letter, and I was like, oh, you know, I needed more nudity maybe to get this going because I was thinking about it funding. And he goes, well, you have like 10 pages. Why didn't you just put them on the I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel like those were the best pages. And ultimately it was fine and we funded. And so I don't know if it would have been better or worse had I put those on there. But even me, I'm the guy that's like, do what you feel is best. Even I held back on that and I have the freaking nudity available to me.
Well, so here's a question for you guys. I know Kevin and Charlie and I have talked about this before. It's come up in some of our discussions is, you know, the Kickstarter project image is so important. You know, it's vital to your project. And, you know, Charlie says that, you know, make a separate image for that. You know, we of course, you know, I recycle art because, you know, I recycle art and, you know, I try to find the piece that works, but having a dedicated image that's composed and designed and built by the artist, you know, makes a whole lot of sense because that image does so much work, you know, for your campaign.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I commissioned a specific one for the first time this go around, and I think it's been very valuable. You know, and you know, heard that from Charlie, heard that from Pat, and ran with it, and yeah, it made a lot of sense to me. I mean, it's I mean, it really needs to sell what you want it to sell. You know, I think the image for Jump 2, it was a really interesting dynamic image. You know, I recycled art, but I put it together, but it didn't really scream what the book was about, and it didn't say the 2 or 3 things that that we specifically wanted to sell. And I think we suffered because of it. You know, we still funded okay, but we didn't take the leap that I wanted us to take.
But that's interesting. I'm going to ask you real quick. Do you feel like you're taking the leap? Because after you answer the question, I have a theory.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're ahead of the game in terms of where we were last time. So we'll see. I mean, I still have 28 days to answer that question.
Right.
What I will say is we're I don't know, we're about 25% ahead where we were last time. So right now,
That's good.
And you know, maybe that has something to do with the image, and maybe it doesn't. It certainly doesn't hurt. You know. So
I have a theory that when you're serializing a book, your second campaign is you're not going to take a large leap on the second campaign.
Okay.
I feel like watching it and being part of it, it's that third, fourth, and as you go on. And I'll ask on Mechaton if you feel this, because your first one, everybody's excited.
Sure.
And then your second one, you know, you're going to get a couple new people. You're going to get a couple people who don't come back. And you're going to be in that 10 to 20% range up or down. But I feel like when you come back that third, fourth, fifth time,
sure,
all of a sudden it's a thing. Oh, I've seen this book a couple times. I should have gotten it. They're still doing it. I can. And I think that's where the leaps start going. Number one is always in comics big.
Right.
But on Kickstarter you can build, but I don't think the building comes in the second one. And in fact, Pat Shan told us that one of his books, the book, I'm blanking on the name, but the
Prison Witch,
he didn't know how long it was going to go. He did issue 2, and he felt it funded, but it didn't fund the way he wanted it to. So they decided they were going to end it on 3. He did Prison Witch final volume 3, the finale, and it absolutely killed. He's like, now I wish I hadn't ended it. Now, I don't know if it killed because it was the finale and everybody knew I can get one full thing, or he was getting into that third. That's a question no one will ever be able to answer. But
sure,
I think it's okay if 2 doesn't loop like you want it to, because I think it's snowball. I keep using that thing, but I think Kickstarter is a snowball. You have to. sometimes you have to roll it for a mile before it starts getting bigger, but then all of a sudden you go over the hill and it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it,
Well,
and it
yeah.
grows itself.
Yeah, and there is this thing where the baton gets passed from your friends and family to
Yes.
legit Kickstarter backers, right? So,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know, friends and family show up like crazy during that first time. The second
Mhm.
time, they're like, "Oh, you know, oh God, he's doing this again? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. Didn't he just do this?
Yeah, and you hope that void gets filled with regular backers, but the regular
Mhm.
backers aren't coming in with the big contributions and all that stuff all the time.
Right.
So that becomes a thing, and yeah, and you know, hopefully you're building that legitimate Kickstarter base every time.
Mhm.
And there is something too. I mean, it's, you know, I do a podcast with creators called The Writer's Block. David Avalone and I do it, and we get on and talk a lot about this and a lot about marketing and whatnot. And something that comes up all the time is this, you know, this sort of scientifically proven idea that somebody needs to hear about something, you know, independently 7 times before it becomes a thing in their mind, right?
Mhm.
Before it clicks. It's like, oh yeah, I know that.
Mhm.
And it's almost like what you were talking about with creators, right? Like if you've
Mhm.
heard about me from like 7 different people, or you know, you saw my campaign, Charlie talks about me when he was on, you saw me on Facebook doing something,
Mhm.
then suddenly I become a thing in your mind, right?
Mhm.
And I think kind of what you're talking about is, you know, somewhere, you know, in the middle of that third campaign is when people have seen you enough on the shows, on social media, in the Kickstarter groups on Facebook,
Mhm.
in the collab groups over chat, to be like, oh wow, yeah, this is a thing. Like this is a brand
Mhm.
on Kickstarter now, and so we better, you know, better see what Coke tastes like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think his boat is seaworthy. I might jump in, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
gentlemen,
have no idea if that's the case. I'll be honest. I have absolutely no clue.
it's fair. Yeah.
Every comic feels, every campaign feels completely different and completely new, and I never know what to expect really. Frankenstein #2 funded in 72 hours. Mechaton #3 funded on the second to last day.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I put it out there. I haven't had one fail yet, and I hope I never have to experience that.
So-
I just hope for
We
the
got to
best.
keep pushing. We're gonna get it, man. We got
Yeah.
a week or so. We're gonna do it.
I have a question. You're going to laugh, but hear me out after you laugh. Do any of you go to Kick Track?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and laugh.
Yeah.
There's no greater joy than seeing what you're going to make, you know, just after you've launched your campaign on Kick Track.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. But they keep all of that data. They have some really good, you know, bar charts and graphs and actual data around your campaign that stays out there. So I can then go back and compare Crossword Division 3 to Crossword Division 4 and see what percentages, you know, am I seeing about the same curve of, you know, backers over the course of the first week or the first 2 weeks. So it's actually, yeah, it's great that first day. Yeah, I love that too. But there's really good data out there that you can always just go back and kind of mine. You know, you can right click and download those PNG files and keep them with your campaign so that you can then, oh, cool, I want to go back and check. You know, how am I doing with this issue compared to last issue or that? And it's, you know, I don't know that it actually impacts anything, but in the heat of the moment, you know, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to fund. I can go back and look at that and say, you know, calm down, step back from the cliff.
Mhm.
You're doing fine. It's just you're right where you were last time. It's okay. You know?
The daily data is very valuable. I mean,
Mhm.
for what you're talking about is, you know, let's see how it's gone before. You know, I can basically, you know, you know, figure out where I'm headed with this thing. But also, it can be a wake up call. You know, I mean, I have that window open every day, and it tells you how many backers you're getting daily, right? And sometimes, you know, I wake up, I take my daughter to school, I eat, I send out my emails, I check in, and you know, I have, you know, I already have 8 backers, you know, for the day, and so, you know, I know it's going to be a pretty good day. I can, you know, I can get to writing and not worry about it. You know, sometimes it's, you know, it's 3:30. It's 3:30, and I have 1 backer for the day, and I know that, okay, well, I need to hit the pause button here, and I need to fire the pod up somehow. What do I need to do? I need to do I need to send out an email blast? Do I need to start messaging previous backers individually? Do I need to get on some of the groups and fire some things up? And you know how much work you have to do that day. And you don't want to be firing the pot up every day because, it just becomes noise then, and you're not going to be able to move anything. But there are days, where, whatever it is, the 6th day and you don't have a backer and it's 2:00. Well, okay. I need to do some work today, and hopefully
Beat the drum.
Yeah. And hopefully when that day clicks over, you have your respectable number, and hopefully you've kickstarted things. The momentum is going, and that's going to carry into the next day. Hopefully, that's very valuable, because otherwise you might not know that.
Yeah. All right. I've got one thing to share. Joey Galvez, we talked about the book that's coming up, his first campaign, and he asked me to share his launch page. And I picked the wrong one. So I'm going to stop that and try again. This is what I was doing behind the scene when people came in. I told you I might mess it up.
Bless you.
All right.
Bless you.
You know what? It's the same one came up. So I'm going to send you to badassgirlworld.com. Join the army /join-the-army. And check it out. Basically, Joey says that this book is about a girl who was orphaned in the aftermath of an alien invasion and raised in the martial arts by a mysterious Chinese woman, Qing Shi. A lone teen known only as Badass Girl walks the earth seeking her place in a hostile world. So if you can find the pre-launch page that I can't show you, hop on there and check it out. But guys, I really appreciate it. In case somebody is just turned on Facebook and they missed this, I'm going to ask you guys to listen to the podcast this week, because it was a heck of a show. I enjoyed every bit of it. But we're going to give you one more chance to do the 30-second pitch. Let's talk about Amongst the Stars, the anthology. CJ, one more time, how would you get somebody's attention at a comic convention about your anthology?
Again, sci-fi romance, a great mashup for people to enjoy. 110 pages of content, 14 creative teams, some very well-known indie creators out there, and some up-and-comers too. Some real big highlights like Carolyn Leelane, Sid Mills doing her first interior comic book work, and just a great group of guys at Band of Bards really pushing it, who are really putting out some phenomenal content. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of the guys working with them. They really do put out some good comics. I'm not just a creator, I'm also a reader. I read a lot of comics, and they have a lot of good stuff that they're pushing out right now. So would really appreciate some support. Anybody to go to our Kickstarter and check it out. Hairology is funded, so you have no excuse not to go to our anthology. Like, we're next, guys, for an anthology. Obviously, Wells has got a great comic out too.
Well, Wells, let's talk about that comic, Mechaton.
Yeah, Mechaton is about a slacker, an artist, and a witch that discover a alien glove that turns anything it punches into a mech. Kaiju shenanigans ensue. It's very Scott Pilgrim meets Pacific Rim. All ages book that is a ton of fun and anyone can enjoy.
Awesome. And Rylan, let's go with the book that shall not be named.
There you go. The Jump. The Jump is a paranoid thriller set in the world of astral projection. The elevator pitch is Inception meets The Bourne Identity if it were dripping with macabre, and directed by David Fincher. That sounds pretty cool to me. It is brought to you by the Ringo award-winning team that brought you Banjax. I've written in Hollywood for 15 plus years for folks like J.J. Abrams and Ridley Scott and Justin Lin and John Woo. So this is big, kick you in the teeth Hollywood action. It's tons of fun. We funded in 36 hours. We're off to the races. We're blasting through stretch goals. If you back, you get all of my number ones. So you get Aberrant number one, Banjax number one, Suicide Jockeys number one. You actually get over 17 individual comic issues for one pledge right now, because You get our bonus digital extravaganza with some great books from some of the hottest, the best, the brightest creators in comics, folks you've had on the show even. And so yeah, it's a big barrel of amazing for a single pledge. So come on down.
That's awesome. Speaking of someone we've had on the show, Travis has something to say to you, Will. He says, so Will is good enough to show up on CJ Wells and Ryland's comics, but not his own. I'm going to speak for Will. Apparently, CJ Wells and Ryland are good enough for Will to show up, Travis. I think it's the other way around.
Wow.
Okay, now, Will, you can be nice to him because I messed with him.
Sorry, man. I didn't realize.
It was very personal. He told us. He told us, like, if Travis Gibbs shows up, I want him to know.
I'm out. Gibbs in. I'm out. All right. It was great to meet you three, and I hope if you got another book coming in the future, reach out. We'd love to hear more about it and hear more about your adventures making comics. Yeah. Everybody that was in the chat, Shawnee, of course, Travis, we needed you here earlier. Fanny, Hagar's Horribles, everybody that was in there, we really appreciate you coming out, and we'll be here next week. I think we might talk to somebody who knows a little bit about making comics on Kickstarter. Madeline Holly Rosling, Boston Metaphysical, is lined up to be with us. We got a couple others, but Madeline's the one whose name is in my head. And I just want to show that we don't just have white guys. It is easier to have a panel of white guys than everything, but we do want diverse voices. This just wasn't the night to have it. So
I'm Jewish, if that counts. I don't know.
I appreciate everything we got tonight. So thank you and shalom.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.